the buyback of its fully paid up equity shares of face value 5 rupees each from the equity shareholders, and the size is not exceeding 13,000 crore rupees. That comes up to about 20.51% of the total paid up equity capital and free cash reserves of the company. As I was pointing out earlier, the buyback aggregates to 4.92% of the overall equity shares and a price of about 1,150 rupees, which again, as we were pointing out, is a premium over the volume weighted average, about 19.08% premium on BSE, 18.7% on NSE. And in terms of the pricing is premium of 17.73% on BSE and 17.92% on NSE as of the August 16th closing price. The board has also noted that given the significant shareholding of US residents by way of ADS and equity shares, it was necessary for company to seek and obtain exemptive relief from the US SEC on certain aspects of the tender offer procedures, and that's the reason why it took time for Infosys to finalize its buyback details, owing to the regulatory norms that were required due to conflicting regulatory requirements between Indian and US laws for tender offer buybacks, and the same has been maintained. They have also noted that the inconsistent with disclosures previously made in the company's Form 25 and the prospectus in connection with the offering and or listing of ADS. Holders of ADS will be able to participate in the buyback if such ADS holders cancel ADSs and withdraw the underlying equity shares to become equity shareholders of the company as on record date. So what that essentially says is that ADS shareholders have the complete ability to be able to participate in the buyback. There hasn't been a portion reserved for them. Yeah, there hasn't been a portion reserved for them, but since they have gotten the necessary nod from SEC, ADS shareholders, and that is the foreign shareholders, can participate into the company, into the company's buyback. Couple of other details that I'm also just getting in right now is that the board has formed a buyback committee comprising of Ravi Venkatesan, who is the co-chairman, Vishal Sikka, Praveen Rao, MD Ranganath, who is the CFO, Jayesh Sangrika, the Deputy Chief CFO, Indrapreet Sauni, who is the General Counsel, as well as GS Manikanta, who is the company secretary. The company will essentially ensure that the buyback committee will have powers to do all acts, deeds, matters and things as it may in its absolute discretion deemed necessary, expedient, usual or proper in connection with the buyback. So essentially what that means is that now there will be a committee in place that will be looking into the buyback process, that will be looking into the entire carrying out of the buyback process, and if at all there had to be any other returns to shareholders at a later date, this committee is going to be responsible for that. I think that is all there is as far as the buyback is concerned. We have Mohandas Pai joining in. Mr. Pai, the price that has been decided of the buyback is 1,150. We had Sandeep with us pointing out that while that is a decent price, keeping yesterday's correction in mind, the market was expecting 1,250 to 1,000 to 1,225 at least, as far as if you compare the other IT companies. But the overall amount that will be coming in is 4.92%. What do you make of this?
No, I think it's a good start. It's a very conservative company which wants to hang on to cash. Yes, we are also part of that conservativeness which held on to cash when we were there, but at least the growth rate was much higher. Growth rate has come down, so capital allocation becomes very important. I think it's a decent start. So hopefully about 4.92% of the EPS of the stock will come down because they'll buy back. And they should have a regular policy of buying back stock and giving dividends. So 75 to 80% of the cash generated will be flowed back. The balance can be used for acquisitions or whatever. There's enough money in the company and they have a kitty, opening balance kitty, so that over the next 3 or 4 years, at least 15-20% of the stock is bought back, so that every year EPS can grow at least in the low teens.
Mr. Pai, there's a buyback committee that has been formed which will be pretty much overseeing all the regulatory requirements, all the deeds, the matters, I mean, essentially ensuring that the buyback goes through correctly. Why the need for a buyback committee, if I may ask? And do you think that the buyback committee will be in charge of ensuring shareholder returns at a later date as well?
No, first of all, having a committee is good because it's a very complex issue. Remember, they are listed in the NASDAQ. They got the 17% ADR outside, right? So the regulations there are very different from regulations here. So it's a very complex transaction, much more complex than TCS or Wipro. So I think having a committee to take quick decisions to be there, I think is a good idea. You normally have it when you go for an IPO, when you have a capital matter, you normally have it. I think it's a good idea. But the key is the board should be very clear what is the capital allocation policy in future. They made some statement that up to 50% or more we'll give back this, but that's not adequate. Look at Cognizant has done. I keep coming back to Cognizant because I must admit, even though I'm an IMSI man, that Cognizant has got better clarity on the buyback and capital allocation than IMSI. Cognizant has said very clearly, over the next 2-3 years, this is what we plan to do, this is how we're going to be back, this is our targeted returns. They've been very clear. I think IMSI also has to be clear. But the next 2 or 3 years, they will have buybacks. They will return back much more of the cash. They'll improve the free cash flow in the company. I think they have to be clear and make a clear statement so that everybody
So would you say, Mr. Pai, that this amount, so it's 13,000 crore rupees, and of course that is excluding all the other transactional costs, GST, stamp duty, etc. But that 13,000 crore rupees that is coming out is roughly 20.51% of the total cash reserved and the paid up equity capital that the company has. Do you expect this to just be a start, and after the fiscal ends?
I expect it to be a start. They still got too much of cash. They got 40,000 cash, 13,000 crores is very small. It's peanuts. I'd expect at least 20,000 crores to come out. They're not done it. They've been too conservative. I don't know why. But at least they made a start after so much. Remember, Bala and I and Prahlad, they written a letter 4 years back to which they gave no reply. They just dismissed it, saying some shareholders asked that. I think it's good news. Let them start, and that there should be a very clear capital allocation policy because there's a company sitting on surplus cash, and this is a company which is generating high cash flows, so they will be very clear. And this is a company which is growing slower, whereas the market expectations are higher. So a combination of growth, a combination of buyback will ensure the EPS grows at 11%, making it an attractive investment destination. Because people want stocks with big companies where EPS grows at least in the mid-teens, so that it becomes interesting for them. So I guess the capital allocation is an important part of the strategy when you have large free cash flows.
Mr. Pai, would you expect, I mean, I know you can't speak for the other promoters and the founders, but do you expect the founders also to participate in the buyback?
Yes, I think they should participate in the buyback as shareholders. It will be good for them because they have said publicly that over a period of time they want to divest in small lots. They had two divestments so far. So instead of selling in the market, which many people may construe as a lack of confidence in the company and hurt the company, I think they should participate in the buyback to the extent they have an allocation, because I'm sure it will go to everybody, and take their share. They did it in the ADR twice. All of us did in the ADR twice, 3 times. So here also I think they should do it. It's the right thing to do for them, and I would strongly recommend that publicly to them, though I don't know whether they listen to me, but I would recommend that they also do it.
Okay. Mr. Pai, as I was pointing out earlier, the market was hoping or expecting 1250 to 1225 to be the price, and that is in keeping with what TCS, HCL and Cognizant have done. So what has come out is a significantly lesser amount, that is 1,150 per equity.
I think, look, the stock price was hovering around 920, 940 before it jumped to 1020, right? So on the base of, let's say, 930 and 940, if you're giving 1150, that's how much is that? That's about 18% or something?
Yeah, that's about 17%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. It's decent. You could ask for more, but I think it's decent.
Sandeep, come in on the point that Mr. Pai just made on the pricing.
Yeah, so I think, what Mr. Pai is saying is correct because of yesterday's correction. But yes, market was expecting actually that, they should come at around 1,300 or above 1,250 because, that is where the price has touched and come down. So yeah, it is totally, dependent. We cannot, define what it would be, but expectations were between, 1,180 to 1,300. That is the way I would put.
Okay. Mr. Pai, Sandeep and I were talking about the acceptance ratio. He expects about 50% to retail. I don't want to go too technical, but do you expect foreign investors to be happy with the price? Do you expect the ADS shareholders also to tender?
I expect everybody to tender because it's a good price. It's a good price. You tender, you sell in the market, you get it lower. I think they should tender, take their share. That's very good. They get some money back without selling in the marketplace. I don't know the tax implication of this buyback, so they must take up the tax takers, but I